a great pleasure today to have Jenny Linden, author and child psychologist of the book What It Means to Be Four. And Jenny is going to talk to us about our 4-year-olds to give us more insights into how we can play with them, our 4-year-old, interact, and what we can generally expect to get in the minds of our 4-year-old, really, to help with their growth and development and our own sanity.
Yes, that too. Yes.
Okay, Jenny, so do you want to start just by giving us a bit more insight into what we can expect from a typical 4-year-old?
I think what really can strike us about the 4-year-olds, although there's still lots of things they can't do, lots of things they don't know, they have, because of our help when they were younger, stepped over into understanding a lot more about what we would call the abstract ideas, like things like colour, right? Now the world is full of colour, but you don't know the colour, you're not born knowing colour names. Number, right? They will, because we've done things like counting with them, little games where you count, little nursery rhymes, it's very probable that 4-year-olds actually can and are interested, to gather together items, whether it's stones or shells, and finger counting, so they will be counting. When you think about, well, how can we help? How we help with that is kind of stretching a little bit, but not pushing them too far, because they don't understand everything there is to know about numbers. One of the things, because they can count, it's quite nice to think, if you haven't already, about very, very simple board games where perhaps you're throwing a dice and you can get quite big dice, and then moving your, not too complicated, very, very simple card games. You can get incredibly simple forms of dominoes, and you can get like picture dominoes rather than number dominoes, and all those things. What helps children then is with that, it's not just counting, but there's a certain amount of strategy with some of these games as well. And also, because I think sensibly there will be an adult there to start with, dealing with the issues around winning and losing, because it is going to happen sometimes. I think in terms of what you have then sometimes, if you think about numbers, letters, children beginning to understand that world, we look at what makes sense to them.
I think as well, when they become 4, it seems to be the time that they start to actually be able to sit down and do a task as well.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Yes, because the sitting there is that intriguing. Because I think the younger ones, very often, they will sit down, but they'll sit down on the floor with something. They'll hunker down in the garden because they're really interested. But yes, I think you're right. So the 4s, sometimes it will be, they will organise themselves. They will gather their stuff together and they will settle down and do something that they want to do. Thinking about, I mentioned about the games, it still says this was so important. The other thing about what can be useful is on the sort of numbers and letters front. I think what's quite handy, certainly I had them for my own children, is actually having a set of plastic, and the word plastic letters or numbers, ideally the magnetic, especially if you've got a fridge. It helps children to be able to move around the numbers or the letters, and if they are beginning to think, what's my letter, which is the letter, to be able to find it. The practical thing I would say is have 2 little separate boxes and help children put the letters back into one and the numbers back into the other, otherwise they get muddled.
And have you got any tips on uppercase and lowercase?
I think definitely any good set should be lowercase. By and large, what you're doing at this stage, it's all lowercase, but obviously they will see, and if you write like their name, then the first letter will be uppercase or be a capital. But basically you stick with lowercase at this stage. And that, I think, is one of those things where, that's worthwhile getting, but we're not thinking they're going to read and write next week. They're on the journey.
Right, okay. So Jenny, in terms of the 4-year-old, then I think one of the things with my 4-year-old is a reluctance to get involved in tidying up. I think she's so interested in the play side of things that she could quite happily leave a trail of things behind.
Yes.
And I just thought we spoke about being helpful with the younger age groups, and in what ways can 4-year-olds be quite helpful?
I think, as you say, there is this resistance sometimes, that you get to know your own particular 4-year-old. Some are more resistant than others. So I think there's a certain amount of, without turning into a dragon, is a certain amount of, well, hey, we do need a bit of tidying up round here before. Yes, might be before we sit down and watch your afternoon television programme. And certainly in terms of television, it's bad for children to watch huge amounts, but small amounts chosen carefully. So that might be an incentive. I think the thing also about 4-year-olds wanting to be helpful is there's, I think, an increasing amount of wanting to do almost exactly what you do. So obviously there are some things, like I wouldn't give a 4-year-old a chip pan. But certainly thinking in the kitchen, or helping out, say, if you have a garden, or very, very simple DIY or mending, is really take the opportunity to show a child how to be safe with a simple tool.
So then, Jenny, can you give us some tips and insights on ways that we can play with our 4-year-olds to encourage their development?
I think what you find is that because they're physically much more adept, you start to be able to have really a chance to have sort of, within reason, bat and ball games. The big thing that you find is that you need to throw a ball so they can easily hit it. You're not trying to make it difficult. And keep things simple, so like a bat and ball on the ground. Or remember, I was in one nursery and they had tied tennis balls into the foot of a tight, and then fixed it onto a washing line, and the children had like ping pong bats. Right? Much safer version of the beach. So simple games like that, as well as they still enjoy a lot of, run around and run and chase, and you can begin to do, they understand more games like, Simple Simon. You can play those with your children at home. Increasingly they will be enjoying those in nursery as well. Yeah,
that's great. In terms of sort of the ideas for gifts or things toys that are great for 4-year-olds, can you give us some insights?
I think, they enjoy, good stores of things. So I think especially if they've had plenty of chance for drawing and painting, a lovely array of chalks or different kinds of pencils or crayons, they will enjoy. Knowing your child, some will really, really love a truck. If you've got a child who likes actual cooking, also likes pretend cooking.
So they start to define their preferences.
Yes, they do. Lovely set of, kind of pretend pans, as well as enjoying the real cooking at home.
That's great. And then finally then, just in terms of siblings really, with 4-year-olds, what tips or recommendations can you give in a family setting?
I think you reap what you've sowed early on, I would say. If you're very, very unlucky if they don't have some shared games that they now like to play with each other, indoors, outdoors, they do love very simple things like little tents, or just do the old-fashioned sort of drape a sheet over something. So they will have made some games together. They may enjoy shared things like books. They may enjoy, building together. And certainly if you're lucky enough either to have your own garden or get the children out into an open space, they will have a lot of lively physical games together. They won't want to be together all the time.
No.
Yes.
Izziwizzi kids!